Why Priscilla Presley was afraid of Ann-Margret. The Elvis Presley Ann-Margret affair. A story about a love triangle between Priscilla, Elvis, and Ann-Margret. An iconic couple whose marriage ended up in a divorce. Priscilla revealed the details about her relationship with Elvis. Priscilla talked about meeting Elvis Presley, their marriage, and the factors and issues that led to the couple's divorce. Like many young men, Elvis Presley longed to surround himself with gorgeous, glamorous women who adored him. Unlike most, he had the opportunity to do exactly that. The singer was linked to many high-profile beauties during his short life, and those who have remembered him publicly have generally done so with affection. Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley were an iconic couple of their time. The pair met when Priscilla was 14 and Elvis was 24. Their age gap was never a problem for Elvis, as he thought he could transform Priscilla into his perfect woman. In 1966, the King proposed to his beloved, and they married in Las Vegas a year after. Elvis Presley's wedding details were kept in secret, and only years after it took place, we discover more facts about it. Yet even before they got married, Priscilla knew she wasn't the only woman in Elvis's life. After sowing a few remaining wild oats, see the entry on Ann-Margret. Elvis did tie the knot with Priscilla in 1967. They welcomed their only child, Lisa Marie, the following year. But the union soon faltered. In her 1985 memoir, Elvis and Me, Priscilla suggested that her husband's sexual interest in her waned once she became a mother, and confessed that she eventually sought consolation in an affair with a karate instructor, Mike Stone. The chemistry between Elvis Presley and the Swedish singer Ann-Margret was palpable, and it didn't disappear when the cameras stopped rolling. Ann-Margret was the singer's leading lady in 1964's movie Viva Las Vegas, and made a huge impression on him. In Elvis and Me, Priscilla said she was feared the Swedish star the most during the time leading up to her marriage. Elvis had assured her that his relationship with Ann-Margret was strictly professional, but later Priscilla discovered that it wasn't the case. The first meeting between Elvis and Ann-Margret was well planned by the publicity department for the upcoming film Viva Las Vegas. Director George Sidney, who himself was pretty keen on Ann-Margret, introduced the two stars to each other at the MGM studios. Both were formally dressed, Elvis in a suit and tie, Ann-Margret in a double-buttoned white turtleneck, her hair up. They said a few polite phrases. A photographer took some shots. Then it was over. That we both possessed the devil no one knew, Ann-Margret wrote in her book. They met again on July 11th, this time to work together. The place was Radio Recorder's studio on 7000 Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles. Elvis had, the days before, recorded 6 of the songs for the film. Now it was time for a couple of duets with Ann-Margret, The Lady Loves Me and You're the Boss. They found each other instantly. They were on the same wavelength. They sparkled. When Elvis later asked his foreman, Joe Esposito, what was so special with Ann-Margret, he replied, "She's the female you." No one could have said it better. Elvis and Ann-Margret had similar personalities and qualities. They were soulmates. They both came from simple backgrounds. They were both hesitant to strangers, sometimes very shy. But like wild animals on stage, the music transformed them. To perform was their motivation. Then they gave it all. Both of them were also night people. Shooting started on July 15th in Las Vegas. Elvis and his entourage occupied the 28th floor of the Sahara Hotel. Elvis, of course, stayed in the presidential suite. A few floors down, AnnMargret stayed. Didn't take long, though, before she spent nights with the king in his suite. They stayed inside for the whole weekend. Other times they went out together, just the two of them, with the usual of Elvis's hangers-on. Elvis's buddies went crazy. This just wasn't the Elvis they were used to. On the other hand, they liked AnnMargret. She was straightforward and nice, sure of herself, and incredibly attractive. There were guys of the Memphis Mafia who were just as crazy about AnnMargret as Elvis was. To no use, of course. Elvis was head over heels in love. And when he was like that, you had better watch it. You could joke, of course, even about AnnMargret. Alan Fortas, one of the guys, asked her, in the presence of Elvis, for a favour, one time when she was dressed extremely sexy. "Would you run around the block 4 times, and then lend me your pants?" The room went dead quiet for a few seconds. Then both AnnMargret and Elvis started laughing their heads off. The shooting was a breeze, except for a few incidents with director Sidney. His love for AnnMargret was so big that in every scene Elvis came to play second fiddle. Which, of course, was out of the question. Elvis complained, and the Colonel had to put things right. Other than that, Elvis was in a rare good mood, day in and day out. The Colonel, however, got other things to think about, the day Elvis approached him, and demanded that he should also be AnnMargret's manager, since she wasn't very happy with her own. Something like that was totally against his philosophy, and he soon made it clear to Elvis that if that was to happen, he would only have half the time to dedicate to Elvis, and what the consequences of such a deal would be. Elvis gave it a minute's thought, then backed down. The Colonel knew exactly how to treat his star. But the love between AnnMargret and Elvis showed no signs of wearing off. On the contrary, it deepened, and they learned to trust each other and their feelings. Journalists soon found out this was no ordinary Hollywood romance created by publicity agents. The articles and the pictures that followed drove Priscilla crazy back in Memphis. Elvis made sure on the phone that nothing was going on, but he couldn't calm her down. She wanted to come west herself, but Elvis put his foot down, giving various reasons for her not to come. The main reason was he was pretty satisfied himself. Things couldn't be better. AnnMargret was his woman in Hollywood, and young Priscilla was his also, pining away at Graceland. But deep down he knew, of course, that finally he would have to choose. Elvis wasn't one for brooding, though he would rather grab his Harley, pick AnnMargret up, and go riding around Los Angeles. The perfect way for the couple to be for themselves. At one time, though, the thing didn't go too well. Elvis had just picked her up at MGM and gone a few blocks when he ran out of gas at the corner of Venice and Overland. Luckily enough, right by a gas station, but still had no money. "Neither have I," said AnnMargret. They looked at each other foolishly and laughed. The problem was easily solved, however. The guy at the gas station got their autographs in exchange for a full tank of gas. Joe Esposito came by the next day and paid the check. The shooting of Viva Las Vegas finished on September 16th, but both stars continued to see each other, as much in love as ever. Elvis started to give AnnMargret childish nicknames, a typical sign of his warm feelings. Rusty, her name in the film, Thumper, Scooby, Bunny. They lived only for the moment and for each other, but times were changing. The day John F. Kennedy was shot, November 22nd, 1963, Elvis and Ann-Margret watched the TV broadcasts hand in hand. In person you don't call her Ms. Margaret or Anne, but the name her mother calls her, Ann-Margret, and even now at 52 she wants to be the good girl. Isn't it interesting how we set these impossible standards for ourselves? She asks over tea in her Benedict Canyon living room, her voice a whispered purr. I always tried to be the perfect little girl, always tried to have the perfect little manners. I never wanted to displease my parents, but you're setting yourself up. She laughs a deep, full-bodied chuckle of the hey, hey, hey variety. Then, with her lavender-blue eyes looking straight through you, she adds, I mean you're cruising for a bruising. What would you do in the place of Ann-Margret? How could you stop this impulsive chemistry and not falling in love?